Wow, the Miami Heat win what is up there for the game of the year. Andrew Wiggins at the buzzer. How did the Cavs leave him so open? We break it all down next here on Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Whether you're tuning in on YouTube or on your podcast app, thanks so much for making us your first listen every day. Join the Cookie Gang, become an everydayer by subscribing. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. I'm Wes Goldberg, host of Locked On NBA Daily and Real GM Radio. I'm here in a room at the bottom of Kaseya Center. Got a fun show for you today. We've got credit cookies to hand out. We're also going to get to your listener questions here in a minute. But it's about an hour since the final buzzer, and I still can't get over the ending of this game, guys. Donovan Mitchell, who couldn't make anything all night, hits a three from the corner, an impossible three, falling away off of an offensive rebound. Chaos ensues. Ball ends up in his hands. Ties the game with 0.4 seconds left. And we think this game's going to a second overtime. Not enough time to run a real play. But Eric Spoelstra draws something up. Well, really, it's Chris Quinn. We'll get to that part of that in a second. On the inbound, Nikola Jovic finds Andrew Wiggins streaking wide open to the basket. Perfect lob pass from Nico to Wiggs. He dunks it at the buzzer for the win. You knew that they were going to try to get something at the rim. We've seen Eric Spoelstra do this before. I think it was maybe 2 years ago where they found Jimmy Butler on a wide open dunk at the rim against the Chicago Bulls. And I think it was also Nico on the inbound on that, if I have that right. So we knew that that's what they're going to try. Plus, it was only like less than half a second left. They didn't have many other options. A really cool play design in this one, though. So luckily, I was filming it. I tweeted out the video right after the buzzer beater. And at first, all you could see is Wiggins just wide open. That's what everybody in the arena is looking at. Like, how did he get so open? You see Cleveland just sort of looking defensively like, how did we let this guy get so open? Here's what happened. So it was a really neat play design where you actually have Norm Powell kind of running through almost like an elevator doors set, kind of zipping through two ball screens set by two different Heat players. And he comes up from the baseline up to the three-point line and then out. And so you see Cleveland kind of a little confused about who needed to switch and who needed to cover what kind of ground and all that stuff. And they pause just for a split second. And in that time, Wiggins is able to use his athleticism, streak to the basket, wide open. Nikola Jovic, perfect pass. If he throws it a little bit in the wrong direction, instead of getting it there in 0.4 seconds, maybe it takes 0.6 or 0.7 seconds. It was a perfect pass. It was perfectly executed. An unreal ending to this game that we luckily avoid going to two overtimes. I just had a baby. I was very happy about not having to go to two overtimes. Very happy for this Heat win, obviously. What I thought was really interesting, though, and I mentioned the Chris Quinn part of that there, Eric Spoelstra after the game said he actually had this play on his play sheet for 4 years called CQ, initials of Chris Quinn. And at the buzzer, or with 0.4 seconds left, the Heat, they call a timeout after that Donovan Mitchell three, and Spo looks to Chris Quinn, hands him the clipboard, and says, draw up your play. And the players were a little confused. Like, first of all, they were just getting over Donovan Mitchell hitting this impossible three-pointer from the corner to tie the game. And they're kind of getting over all of that happening. And now they're looking over, and it's not Spo, but it's Chris Quinn who has the clipboard and is drawing up this play. And they draw it up, and everybody agrees, beautiful set, let's do it. Norm Powell, decoy, Wiggs goes the other way. Perfect misdirection. Eric Spoelstra loves these kind of misdirection plays on the inbounds in these scenarios. So it was a beautifully executed play. Wiggs gets a ton of credit for timing that, for getting up there, for doing it quickly, for getting that ball off in time. And the Heat avoid what could have been a disastrous kind of loss, honestly. I mean, they were up by 15 in the second half of this game. And Sam Merrill hits 4 straight three-pointers to basically single-handedly lift Cleveland back into this game. This was a bad Cavs game. Donovan Mitchell was bad. Darius Garland was also bad in his 19 minutes. He left in the middle of this game, re-aggravating that toe injury, and he did not return. So The Cavs actually had no real business being in this game, but it's a very talented team. They ended up hitting a ton of threes in the second half, but they fouled the Heat a ton. 36 made free throws, 36 for 41 from the line for the Heat in this game. There was a ton of fouls in this one. Defensively, they were not very good, but they were worse offensively. The Cavs just could not buy a shot for most of this game, except for that little Sam Merrill 91-second outburst, 4 straight three-pointers in 91 seconds to race that 15-point lead and tie the game at that point. And then Cleveland actually took a lead at one point in the second half. But Miami held in it. They held in there. Game went to overtime. This was one of those kind of clutch games that this Heat team just consistently lost last season. And they would fold under the pressure or lose their identity. And we talked about this all the time on the show. It's like, what is this team late in games? We don't really know. We don't know what they want to do offensively. Defensively, they were sort of up and down last season. But in this game, they knew exactly what they wanted to do. They leaned into small ball just like they did at the end of that Portland game over the weekend. And they said, we don't care if you've got Evan Mobley out there. We're going to stay small. Kel'el wears some big minutes down the stretch, so it wasn't like they were small the entire time. But they leaned into their pace. They leaned into their tempo. They leaned into what made them special and makes them special this season, and it worked. And it's worked now for this win, a statement win. Could have been a scheduled loss. And I think it says a lot about this team, the fact that they didn't walk into this kind of looking at this as, hey, 3 games in 4 nights against a really tough Cleveland Cavaliers team. They're rested. We're not very rested. We see them again on Wednesday. If we just split this, we're probably going to be okay. They don't look at it that way. They don't look at it that way. And they came out with tempo, with urgency, and this is a team that is taking the regular season very seriously. And to win against this team in particular, a team that blew them out to historic proportions in the playoffs last year. They've lost, I think, 6 straight games against Cleveland going into this one. The Cavs have just had their number. And to go up 15, lose your lead, go down in this game, force overtime, come back, withstand that Donovan Mitchell miracle shot at the end, and then win this thing with less than a half a second left, it shows resiliency, but it's also a statement win for this Heat team. This is a very different team than it was last season. We know about the tempo. We know about the pace. We know about the offense. We know about the non-Jimmy Butler part of this. But more than anything, this is a team that has established a new identity. And getting this win without Tyler Hero in the lineup, without Bam Adebayo in the lineup, just shows what this team is kind of playing with right now. And they're playing with a seriousness about the regular season that I don't think that they've had over the last couple of years. I thought it was eye-opening that Nikola Jovic at the end of the game said in the locker room post-game, said it feels like a family this year, and it did not feel like a family last year. And I thought that was really eye-opening because it would have been really easy at the end of this one to start pointing fingers. Oh, you left Sam Merrill open, or how did you not box out on that rebound that led to that Donovan Mitchell three-pointer, or whatever it was. It would have been really easy to point fingers. And it would have been really easy for somebody to say, no, don't worry, let me go hero ball on this thing. Nobody did that. They stayed together, they rallied, and they got, I think, one of the probably their best win of the season, considering all the circumstances here. One last thing that Nico said, and this reminded me in the postgame, he said that initially the Cavs on that inbound play had Evan Mobley on him, guarding the inbounder. Nico's the inbounder. And he thought that was going to be a problem because obviously with Mobley being 7 feet tall, it was going to be harder to get the ball over him. And then they switched it. They put somebody else on him, and he looked at Wiggins at that point and says, oh, we got this. They put the small on me, the inbounder. I'm going to be able to kind of deliver this pass wherever I want. And then you saw Wiggins wide open, and then it was just it was a no-brainer. It wasn't an easy pass. I don't want to take anything away from Nico. That pass was it was more impressive than the dunk. That pass had to be perfect considering he was kind of delivering it to the opposite side of the basket where Wiggins was streaking. Wiggins came off that screen to the left. Nico was on the right baseline. So that's a tough pass to make, and Nico nailed it. A lot more to get to in this game, including credit cookies. We'll also got your listener questions coming up after this on Locked On Heat. Today's episode of Locked On Heat is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than on FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride that hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who's going to score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into same-game parlays for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game more exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Jaime Jaquez Jr. in this game, another 22 points off the bench. We have been banging Sixth Man of the Year for him. But now you could bet on everything to the NBA Cup, the Heat. Want to know in the NBA Cup right now? Maybe that's something that you want to look at. You might even, I don't know, do we start to take a look at their conference odds? Might be getting ahead of ourselves there, but if you want to take a look at them over on FanDuel. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Today's episode is also brought to you by Mint Mobile. If you're still overpaying for wireless, it's time to say yes to saying no. At Mint Mobile, their favorite word is no. No contracts, no monthly bills, no overages, no hidden fees, no BS. I said yes to making the switch and getting premium wireless for just $15 a month. Mint makes it simple. All plans come with a high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can even bring your own phone and keep the same number and contacts. I love that you're getting the same quality service that you had before, but at a fraction of the price. The setup is super easy. You keep your number, and then you're running in minutes. Ready to say yes to saying no? Make the switch at mintmobile.com/LockedOnNBA. That's mintmobile.com/LockedOnNBA. Upfront payment of $45 required, equivalent to $15 a month. Limited time new customer offer for the first 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details.
Cookie guy, cookie guy, cookie guy, cookie guy. Stack them high like a cookie chain.
Well, it's another Miami Heat win, which means it's time for the tasty segment of Locked On Heat. It's time for credit cookies. For those of you new to this segment, 10 cookies. We're giving them out to the people who deserve the most credit for the win. We're going to start, of course, with Andrew Wiggins. Hits the game-winning dunk at the buzzer that we already laid out. I'm going to give 2 cookies to Andrew Wiggins, not just because of the game winner. Obviously, that's a huge part of it, though, but had 23 points overall in this game on 8 for 13 shooting. Went 2 for 5 from three-point range, 5 of 6 from the free throw line. Only had 2 rebounds, but also had 5 assists. I thought Wiggins was huge. And the 23 points for Wiggs in this game, I think with Wiggs sometimes, I always say he's kind of got like that bottom of the ledger type of production. It's not empty calories, but it feels like sort of early innings pitched with Wiggs a lot of the time. And then for most of his career, he kind of leaves you wanting a little bit more in fourth quarters and in clutch moments. Well, that was the opposite case tonight. He hit big shots in that fourth quarter. There was one turnaround mid-range jumper at the end of the clock that I thought was just a huge relief bucket for the Heat after they had gone a couple possessions without making a basket. And then obviously the dunk at the end, for them to call that up and draw it up for Wiggs and using his athleticism, kind of tapping into that athleticism that we don't see a ton of from Wiggs at this stage of his career. I thought that was huge. So some real impactful buckets for Andrew Wiggins down the stretch of this one. 2 cookies for Andrew Wiggins. Also thought his defense was really strong on this one. He was on Donovan Mitchell a lot. He was on Darius Garland when Garland was healthy and available in this game. So just a great two-way game for Andrew Wiggins, who was, again, finished with 23 points in this one. I got 3 cookies going to Norm Powell. Led the team in points with 33 points, 8 of 19 shooting. Went to the line 13 of 14 times. The Heat took made 36 free throws in this game. Powell accounted for 13 of those made free throws. He was tremendous. And with Powell, it's almost getting to the point now where you're just assuming like 24 points from him on any given night. He's Miami's leading scorer this season. That's not a shocker, but it's the efficiency that he plays with. Not just making shots at an efficient clip, but it's getting downhill, making those quick decisions, finding ways to get to the basket quickly, finding opportunities in transition, playing on the break, being available for those hit-ahead passes, and then mostly it's getting to the free throw line. And you look at Norm Powell, and the free throw line for him was the story tonight. You look at him for his career, averaging 4-ish free throw attempts per game. He's doubled that this season, and that average just went up higher after tonight. So that's sort of the biggest difference with Norm Powell. I'm not going to go so far as to say he's on his way to a career year, but these are career numbers. It's just a little too early for me to kind of predict that. But, you know, David Ramil, my co-host, and I talked after the Heat acquired him from the Clippers. He was coming off of a career year with the Clippers last year, and we said, look, at this stage of his career, he's probably not going to repeat a career season, right? That doesn't typically happen. But if he's 80% of what he was for the Clippers last year, that's still a really good deal when all you traded was Kyle Anderson and Kevin Love to go get him. Turns out we could be wrong. Turns out we could have an even better version of Norm Powell because he's added that layer of the free throw attempts, which I'm kind of surprised that it was as low as it's been. His career average from the line was as low as it's been for his career because he is a physical kind of downhill north-south player, always really has been. But now I guess maybe he's getting credit for it. The fact that he's a starter and playing a ton of minutes, I think that also helps too. But a huge, huge game from Norm Powell. 3 cookies to him, and that is the leader of credit cookies. I got 3 more players to get to. 2 cookies to Jaime Jaquez Jr. I mentioned the 22 points already. 7 of 12 shooting. Was 8 for 8 from the free throw line. Had 13 rebounds. 7 assists. It feels like this is not enough cookies. It really does. We don't go over the 10 cookie limit, right? That's it. And there's too many other cookies to give out. But it was him or Norm Powell for the 3 cookies. I ended up going Norm because 33 points is just a lot of points. But you could easily make the argument that it's Jaime Jaquez Jr. also. What a tremendous game from him. Doing it all, the playmaking is such a big thing from him. And what really stands out now is when he gets into that teeth of the defense, when he gets 2 feet in the paint, teams are crowding him, but he's also making that read. He's getting those 7 assists by getting into that paint first and then kicking out to shooters. Miami got off to a sluggish start in this one. The game flipped as soon as Jaime Jaquez Jr. came back into the game. He checked in, looking at my notes right now, 6:08 with 6 minutes and 8 seconds left in the first quarter. The Heat were down 16-8. Immediately gets into the paint, passes to a driving Norm Powell, 2 points. There's a hit-ahead pass to Pelle Larsson, another 2 points. He gets an offensive rebound, that leads to another bucket, another 2 points. Fontecchio hits a 3-pointer off of a Jaime Jaquez Jr. assist, another 3 points. Jaime Jaquez Jr. comes in, and the Heat immediately go on a 10-2 run and tie the game. This game flipped. You know what? I'm just changing it. Norm Powell's getting 2 cookies. I talked myself into it. Jaime Jaquez Jr., he gets 3 cookies. The game flipped with him. He set the tone. The game flipped with him as soon as he checked into this game. He ends up somehow a -2. I don't really know how. This is when the plus-minus gets lost on me. He was tremendous in this one. Absolutely tremendous in this one. The other thing that I want to point out with Jaime before we move off of him, he had a really big shot at the end of the fourth quarter to tie it and send it into overtime. I should have said that earlier. Huge shot. I'll get back to it. Right at the end of overtime, before the Wiggins dunk, before the Donovan Mitchell 3, that whole sequence was set up by another clutch bucket by Jaime Jaquez Jr. that felt like it would have been the dagger if not for the Donovan Mitchell miracle 3-pointer. And on both the almost dagger and the shot to send the game into overtime, Jaime got into basically the same shot where he gets into the lane, puts his back towards the defense, and then spins back for a turnaround fadeaway jumper. He's really comfortable with that shot, and it looks slick. There's not a lot of wasted movement in it. It's basically a drive, one dribble, turn back, fadeaway, jumper. And having that lift on that jumper is so important. When you don't have that lift, that shot is either short or it's blocked more often than not. And that was the problem with Jaime a lot of the time last year. That is not the problem with him this year. He's clearly healthier. He's clearly in better shape, better conditioned. And for him to have that lift on that shot is huge. And also the timing on that is enormous. And it reminds me of his rookie year, but he's obviously better than he was his rookie year. So 3 cookies to Jaime Jaquez Jr. since we switched that. I got to make my note because we're keeping track all season long of these credit cookies. Kel'el Ware, he gets 2 cookies. Eric Spoelstra said it was the best game of his Heat career. I'd have to actually go back and really think about it, but I have no reason to argue against the coach right now. Amazing game from Kel'el Ware. For the most part, played 33.5 minutes, 7 of 13 shooting for 14 points, had 19 rebounds, 6 of which were offensive rebounds, and it felt like those offensive rebounds were so big for Kel'el. This is not a ball screen offense, right? They did away with the pick and roll. Part of the problem, I suppose, if there is one in doing that, is it kind of took away Kel'el's bread and butter, right? He thrived as a rookie in that pick and roll, catching those lobs, getting to the basket, making himself available with that huge catch radius. You take the pick and roll away, you take away the lob for the most part for Kel'el. You take away his bread and butter play, the thing that gets him going north-south and getting him to the basket. I think that's a big reason why Kel'el has struggled so far this season, especially offensively. But what you saw from him tonight was, okay, well, that lob isn't there. That pick and roll opportunity isn't there. What can I do? you saw Kel'el dominate the dunker spot. Dominate that area right under the basket where those tip-ins and those putbacks are available. I thought he was tremendous. A lot of relief buckets with those offensive rebounds. He had a couple of big ones really late in this game to keep Miami in it and to keep this game where it was and give him a chance late in this game. So I thought he was great. And then defensively, this was his best defensive game of his career. There was a play late in this game where he had to. So the Cavs made barbecue chicken out of Kel'el Ware in the playoffs last year. It's one of the reasons. I know that Tyler Hero got attacked over and over again. So did Kel'el. He was attacked over and over again in that playoff series. And he used that as motivation. He talked about this after the game. He looked at his film, kind of tried to get better at stuff, and he's gotten just better in general and defensively. But Spo's been coaching him hard. We know all of this, right? It's been up and down for Kel'el defensively with the urgency, with the energy, with all that, with the kind of the commitment that they want to see on that end. It's not just rebounding for him, even though it's a huge part of what he has to do. But Cleveland targeted him in pick and roll. Garland and Donovan Mitchell went after him. And for the most part, there was a couple times where it didn't look great, but for the most part, he held his own. Kel'el ended up being a +6 in this game. He was not a negative, and was not a negative defensively. And there was a play late in this game where they called him up. He showed on Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell got the ball back to DeAndre Hunter. Kel'el Ware slides his feet, gets over to DeAndre Hunter to contest a three. That three misses. A really good defensive possession in the fourth quarter to help while the Heat were down 1. So that was a huge defensive play by Kel'el. And then even on the Donovan Mitchell three at the end of overtime that he made, it was Kel'el rushing out to get him. He had the awareness. He was paying attention. He was locked in. And he had a good contest on that three. It was him that was contesting him and made him kind of falling away and made that shot as hard as it was. Of course, Donovan Mitchell made it. But I think Kel'el still gets a ton of credit for that. He also gets credit because of this. His first kind of 6-minute stint was bad. It was bad. Jarrett Allen outplayed him. He went over 3. He airballed a hook shot. Jarrett Allen went 3 for 3 in those same minutes, was dominating, and you were just like sitting there. I'm sitting there media row being like, oh boy, here it goes. This is playoffs all over again. Jarrett Allen is going to look like Akeem Olajuwon out there, and Kel'el Ware is going to get played off the floor. And he was. He was played off the floor. And then he checked back in. And then he was tremendous after that. I think he gets a ton of credit for that kind of bounce back in the middle of the year and then ended up having one of the best games of his Heat career. Also, one credit cookie to Davion Mitchell, running out of time here, but he has 11 points, 8 assists, a couple of rebounds here, had a steal, also had 5 turnovers and 5 fouls in this game, but was still somehow a +12. And I asked Spo about this after the game, and he just says, like, that's Davion, man. Like, that's what he just makes an impact all the time. He dove for that loose ball at the end of overtime to force a jump ball. That's Davion, man. Before you even look, he's on the floor battling for loose balls and stuff like that. So he also gets a credit cookie for his impact and just that ability to kind of fastball his way into the lane, kick out to open shooters. The 8 assists that he had led the team, and they were all very obviously important because this game was as close as it was. Coming up, is this Heat offense actually playerless? We'll explain what one listener means by that after this. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Basketball season is officially here, and nothing beats being in the arena for those opening games. But let's be real, getting tickets can be a total headache. Between waiting in queues, surprise fees, and prices that jump right before checkout, it's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on your team. That's where Game Time comes in, the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NBA tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. Their zone deals are a game changer. You pick the section, Game Time picks your seats, and you save big. Plus, with their seat views, you can look at your view before you buy your tickets with their in-app seat view feature. You can even find NBA tickets for under $25. So, take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go with Game Time. Today's episode is brought to you by Robinhood. Your ambition just met its match. With Robinhood, you play for the win, not just on game day, every day. Locking in on every opening, beating your PR, beating it again. Channel that drive into your money. Robinhood puts you in control of your money. Trade stocks and ETFs, options, futures, and crypto all on one platform. You can now build and execute your own trades from a desktop with Robinhood Legends advanced tools, or take advantage of the new Robinhood strategies with a tailored portfolio managed by a team of experts. You expect more from yourself, expect more from your money. Get started today at Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Again, that's Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Your money, your move. Thanks to everyone who sent in questions via the Locked On Heat Insider community. To get live game notes, announcements, and a chance to ask these questions for our post-game shows, join the Cookie Gang with the link in the show notes. This first question comes from Cody, who writes in, is this offense playerless? As in, it's starting to feel like it doesn't matter who's playing or not. This team just has to grit and tenacity to find ways even without Bam and Hero. This is something I've actually been thinking about. And I think it's unfair to say that it's playerless, right? Because the key players do matter. This team did struggle to score in games without Norm Powell. They really struggled in games, and they're going to struggle if they don't have Norm Powell and Bam and Tyler Hero, right? There's only so much that guys like Kel'el Larson and Davion Mitchell and even Andrew Wiggins and Jaime Jaquez Jr. can do, right? Like, you're going to need shot making. And as much as this offense is fun to watch, they're still not like a top 10 offense by offensive rating. They're scoring a lot of points per game, but in terms of offensive efficiency per 100 possessions, they're outside of the top 10. I think they were 13th or 14th as of this morning. So there's still room to grow, in other words, offensively. And I think that's where Tyler Hero is going to come in with his just efficient shot making, especially from beyond the arc. His three-pointers, if he's able to shoot 40% in this offense at a high clip, that's going to be awesome for this offense. And I also think there might be an opportunity to layer in some more pick and roll stuff. Just because they're not running it now doesn't mean they can't run it a little bit more going forward, but that's a different kind of conversation. In terms of it being playerless, though, I do think there is something to be said about what this system does. And maybe not playerless, but it doesn't feel like there's a ton of roles in this offense. It feels like the roles are a little bit plug and play, right? We know what the offense is. We understand the scheme, right? It's very few ball screens. You're going to have that wheel, guys diving and then filling in behind them. You got the guy cutting through on that initial cut. You got guys working the baseline. You got the proper spacing, all this stuff. And it just works in a sense that you could play it up-tempo, so everybody's just sort of scrambled playing in transition. So you just sort of fill these spots as you're going, and then you play your roles after that. And everybody just sort of understands, hey, if I'm in this spot, I got to do this when this guy does that. And I think that's why this thing took so long to kind of install in training camp and in preseason, and why, frankly, it looked just bad at times in the preseason. It looked really rusty because I think you're not just learning one position. You're kind of learning all the positions on the floor. Because when you're setting up one thing, you're also simultaneously setting up something else because these guys are sort of moving in tandem. And you have to kind of understand where you are in all of those different roles. So it's not playerless, but it does feel like you can kind of plug and play guys into any of those spots. And so when you do lose a guy like Norm Powell, you can elevate a guy like Kel'el Larson, and he just kind of knows where to fit in. And he's not going to be taking threes like Norm Powell, but he can still cut off that same spot. He can still drive off of those kickouts, as opposed to Norm Powell, who's going to shoot those threes a lot of the time off of those kickouts. You can kind of get into your game once you get the ball, and you can kind of get into your game playing in those roles, but it's really about positioning and that kind of spacing. And as long as everybody understands where each player is supposed to be, it is a little bit more mix and match than it has been in the past, whereas, like, you know, this team with Jimmy Butler, it was sort of like, hey, we kind of play out of Jimmy. We got to play out of the post with Jimmy Butler, but when Jimmy Butler isn't available, we don't really have a guy to play out of the post. We tried it with Bam. Maybe we try it with Jaime a little bit in his rookie year, and it kind of works, but it doesn't work to the degree we need it to work, whereas this offense does allow you to do a little bit more. And then also because of the transition attacks and those easier opportunities, if everybody's just kind of committed to playing faster, those opportunities are going to be there. And once you're out in the open floor with not a lot of defenders around you, it's just easy to score no matter who you are in the NBA. So there's that. Andrew writes in, where do you see this team seeding this season from what we've seen so far? Or a better question is, what do you think our ceiling is in the standings? Look, the Heat right now are 7-4 after this game. I don't see them getting a top 2 seed in the East. I still think that ends up being Cleveland, New York, maybe Detroit. Right? I think those are kind of the 3 teams fighting for those spots. And this is a tough stretch coming up, right? You got Cleveland again on Wednesday. They're going to be motivated to get back at you. You still might end up splitting this thing, which I think was always the goal. But I just thought most people probably expected it to be reversed. You lose this one, third game in 4 nights. Maybe you come back and win on Wednesday. So we'll see. And then you play the Knicks twice, and then it's a tough schedule even after that. So we'll see what happens here. And we don't know how long Bam's going to be out, and we don't know exactly when Tyler Hero is going to come back. So this team will face challenges at some point. They're already facing challenges, but they'll face a rough patch at some point. That's for every team, right? But I think the expectation should be home court in the first round of the playoffs. Not the expectation, but the goal. The goal should be first home court in the first round of the playoffs. If you could be a top 4 seed, that's a huge win for this team. The other teams that they're sort of competing with, Orlando, falling off. Good win tonight for Orlando. Desmond Bane hit a game winner, but overall they've been disappointing. The Atlanta Hawks, disappointing. The Milwaukee Bucks started off strong. They lost 3 straight games. I haven't checked to see. I don't even know if they played tonight. So I think the Heat are right there in that group. The Chicago Bulls, after a really hot start, they've fallen off a little bit. I think the Heat can definitely compete for a top 4 seed in the Eastern Conference. So maybe not the expectation necessarily, but that should be the goal, and I think that is probably their ceiling in the standings. Malachi writes in, I know it's early, but I had the Miami Heat a top 5 team in the East coming into the season. Have we shifted to maybe a contender in the East, or is it still too early? We beat a good Cavs team without Bam and Hero. To me, still too early. I think it's still too early, by the way, for everybody outside of Oklahoma City and Denver, and maybe Houston. And probably even Houston, it's too early, as good as they look lately. I think it's really early for this kind of contender talk. But right now, it's good. Cameron writes on, okay, actual question. Game of the year? Maybe. I still think that first game of the year, what was it, Thunder Rockets? That was tremendous. There's been some really good games this season, but for the Heat, this has definitely been the game of the year. William B. writes in, should Jaime Jaquez Jr. be inserted into the starting lineup to inject energy into the starters? It's okay to have nice things, people. Jaime Jaquez Jr., one of the best 6 men in the year, juicing this offense off the bench. That bench group in total really works. I wouldn't mess with it. I would not mess with it right now, especially because if you did decide to elevate Jaime into that starting lineup and then Tyler Hero comes back, that could eat into Jaime's opportunities. I'd rather Jaime come off the bench and make sure that even when Tyler comes back, Jaime's still getting these touches and is still playing this role. He's really thriving in this role. I say, don't mess with it. Let it ride. And let him go for 6 man of the year. I think that's totally I know we talk about it a lot. It's, to me, a legitimate opportunity and possibility for him. Thanks so much for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network.